The International Monetary Fund has projected that South Korea's economy will maintain a growth trajectory ranging between 2.1 and 2.3% until 2028.
국제통화기금 IMF는 한국 경제가 오는 2028년까지 2.1에서 2.3%의 성장세를 보일 것으로 전망했습니다. Right, give us the details, Juyeon.
Yes. So according to its annual consultation report for Korea, the IMF predicted that South Korea's real gross domestic product, or GDP rate, will reach 2.2% in 2024. And it was actually projected 1.4% growth this year. So for next year, it's actually a growth, and it's a stronger growth for next year.
The projection has gone up quite a bit.
And then it's also forecast to grow 2.3% in the next year, 2025, and then followed by 2.2% increases both in 2026 and 27. So it's actually some good news for the country, and thanks to the IMF for that.
네. 올해 같은 경우에는 국내 총생산의 성장률 GDP growth가 1.4%로 이렇게 전망이 됐었던 거에 비해서 내년에는 그것보다 훨씬 높은 2.2%로 전망이 된다라는 얘기네요. The GDP growth forecast has definitely been bumped up somewhat. Let's have a look at the main expressions. The first one, instead of saying forecast, is projection, or in this case, the verb to project.
That's right. So it's basically, it means the same thing. So if you forecast something, you haven't experienced it yet, but you are anticipating something that will happen. And you're saying that most likely, based on our analyses, it will happen in this way. And you usually use forecast, project when you're talking about numbers.
project 한다, forecast 한다 비슷한 의미로 예상한다라는 의미가 있습니다. And then what about growth trajectory?
Yes. When you're talking about growth, trajectory is usually a path or a direction. You can use it for economic growth, but you can also talk about satellite trajectory,
space.
And so whatever path or direction or kind of a growth path you have to go in, you can call it a trajectory.
네, 궤도나 궤적을 trajectory라고 하는데요. growth trajectory라는 게 이런 방향으로 성장할 것이다. 역시 예측한다라는 의미로 볼 수 있겠죠.
That's right.
뭐 직역을 한다면은 성장 궤적이 될 텐데 이제 이 정도의 성장세를 보일 것으로 전망한다는 뜻으로 그러니까 이제 내년도에 2.2% 성장률 예상하고 있고요. 그 다음에는 이제 2.1에서 2.3% 정도 이렇게 왔다 갔다 할 것으로 이렇게 내다보고 있습니다.
That's right.
다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The International Monetary Fund has projected that South Korea's economy will maintain a growth trajectory ranging between 2.1 and 2.3% until 2028. Last headline.
Israel, the U.S., and Hamas have reached a tentative agreement to free dozens of women and children held hostage in Gaza in exchange for a 5-day pause in fighting, according to international news outlets.
이스라엘과 미국 팔레스타인 무장정파 하마스가 5일간의 교전을 중지하는 대신 가자 지구에 억류된 여성과 어린이 인질 수십 명을 석방하기로 잠정 합의했다는 해외 언론 보도가 나왔습니다. Tell us more.
Yes, so this is actually some good news because the international community has been fighting for the Hamas to release the hostages. So it's actually a part of a very detailed 6-page agreement, and the parties said that they will freeze these the combat operations for at least 5 days. And an initial 50 or more hostages are released in smaller groups every 24 hours. So there is a detailed count of the entire protocol. The Hamas actually took about 240 hostages during the October 7th rampage inside Israel, and that actually resulted in killing 1,200 people.
인질 240명 이상이 지금 이제 잡혀 있다라는 얘기인데 일단은 50명 정도의 어린이와 여성 인질을 풀어주겠다라는 그런 agreement가 되겠습니다. 근데 이게 이제 잠정 합의란 말이에요.
That's right.
그
That
표현을 일단 한번 볼까요?
So if you say that something is tentative, it's not fixed. So it's not set in stone. It's provisional. So it's still work in progress. And people are saying, okay, we haven't signed an agreement fully yet,
Yeah.
but we do agree on the basis of it.
If we were to meet up, but we weren't sure exactly what day we were going to meet,
Yeah.
we could say, Juyeon, should we meet up next week, tentatively on a Wednesday?
Yeah,
You know, 잠정적으로 우리 한 수요일쯤에 만날까? 이렇게 말할 수도 있죠.
that's right.
잠정적으로라고 할 때는 tentatively, 그리고 잠정적인 and tentative가 되겠습니다. 여기서 tentative agreement가 잠정 합의가 되겠고요. 그 다음에 이렇게 억류된 상황을 영어로는 뭐라고 하죠?
Held hostage. So these two words go together. So if you're a hostage, you are a person that is seized or held as a security for a condition. In this case, the Hamas has actually taken people in order to fulfill a cause. So you usually say that people are held hostage.
두 개는 거의 항상 같이 붙어 다닙니다. Be held hostage. 그러면 인질로 잡혔다라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. Here's the headline again. Israel, the US, and Hamas have reached a tentative agreement to free dozens of women and children held hostage in Gaza in exchange for a 5-day pause in fighting, according to international news outlets.
APEC leaders have pledged support for reform of the World Trade Organization, although they showed divisions over the wars in Ukraine and Gaza after a 2-day summit in San Francisco.
아시아 태평양 경제협력체 APEC 21개 회원국은 미국 샌프란시스코에서 열린 이틀간의 정상회담 일정을 마치며 세계무역기구 WTO 개혁을 지지한다는 선언문을 채택했습니다. 그러나 우크라이나와 가자 지구에서 벌어지고 있는 전쟁에 대해서는 이견을 보였습니다. Tell us more, Juyeon.
Yes. Well, so the 21 APEC members, this includes actually Russia and Indonesia and Malaysia. They actually went into the meetings and they were divided over Russia's war in Ukraine. Of course.
Yeah.
And the Hamas war, Israel war in Gaza. And they didn't really come to a conclusion after the 2-day summit. And they did issue a statement, however, at the end of the summit. And the United States, the APEC chair, echoed last year's declaration in saying that most of the APEC members, quote unquote, strongly condemn aggression against Ukraine. And of course, the leaders also exchanged views on the Gaza crisis. And some objected to the language of the chair, which is in this case is the United States statement, in saying that the Golden Gate Declaration covering economic issues on the basis that they do not believe that APEC is a forum to discuss geopolitical issues.
자, 이번에 채택된 선언문 이름이 골든게이트 선언문입니다. 아무래도 이제 샌프란시스코에서 열렸기 때문에 그렇겠죠. 이렇게 선언문이 채택이 됐다라고 할 때 a declaration was issued 이렇게 얘기하기도 하죠.
Yes.
자, 그다음에는 as you said, the main issues there, it looks like they were not on the same page when it came to Gaza and also the war in Ukraine. However,
right.
they did see eye to eye on other issues like climate
Yes.
issues or the WTO and digital economy and issues like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at the main expressions here. The first one is to pledge support.
Yes, if you pledge something, usually pledge is used in cases for political circles. And a lot of candidates, when they run for presidency or a specific job or role in politics, they pledge that they will do something. And that is saying that they promise to do something, but more in an official manner. So in this case, when countries pledge support, it means that they have actually officially promised that they will support something.
In America, they do something called pledging allegiance.
Oh, yes, of course.
What's that?
That's actually pledging allegiance to the flag or pledging allegiance to a certain association or alliance, meaning that they promise to do whatever is necessary to fulfill their role within their that allegiance or association.
네, the Pledge of Allegiance라고 해가지고 이게 충성심을 맹세한다는
That's
뜻이죠.
right.
그래서 pledge가 이렇게 맹세한다, 선언한다, 아니면 저기 뭐 약속한다 이런 의미로 볼 수가 있을 텐데 특히 미국에서는 flag 앞에 이렇게 딱 정해진 문구 Pledge of Allegiance를 reciting하는 경우들도 왕왕 있습니다.
That's right.
pledge가 여기서는 약속한다, support,
Yeah.
지지할 것을 약속한다는 뜻이겠네요.
That's true.
And what about reform?
The reform means that you have to make changes to something, but in a major way.
Yeah.
So you're kind of overhauling everything. So you're completely changing everything.
완전히 바뀌는 뭔가 이렇게 개혁의 의미로 확 바뀐다는 의미로 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그래서 여기서 얘기할 때는 Reform of the World Trade Organization,
Yes.
WTO에 대한 개혁, 그 점에 있어서는 APEC 멤버들이 한 마음 한 뜻이 됐었다라는 얘기네요.
There have been a lot of discussions that the World Trade Organization and the the free trade movement itself is not working as it was intended. And so this is actually a silver lining from the APEC summit that the members actually agreed on it.
Well, here it is one more time. APEC leaders have pledged support for reform of the World Trade Organization, although they showed divisions over the wars in Ukraine and Gaza after a 2-day summit in San Francisco. This is our fourth headline.
American singer Taylor Swift has postponed a concert she was due to perform in Brazil on Saturday after a fan died shortly before her show in Rio de Janeiro on Friday.
네, 지난 금요일 가수 테일러 스위프트의 브라질 리우디자네이루 공연 시작 직전에 한 관객이 사망하는 사건이 발생하자 테일러 스위프트가 다음 날로 예정된 공연을 연기했습니다. So I understand it was very hot.
Yes,
That's why?
that's right.
Okay.
And, well, it's in Brazil and it's Rio de Janeiro, so you can't really control the temperature. However, the show's organizers did say that in a statement, a girl who was only 23 had been taken to a hospital and paramedics had been there, but even after she was taken to the hospital, she died an hour later.
From dehydration. Right?
Yes, that's right. Much of Brazil had been seeing record-breaking temperatures that week in the daytime, and it was 39 degrees on that day. And a Brazilian daily newspaper reported that the fan had collapsed at the show, and she had experienced a cardiac arrest.
Some reports have been saying it felt like 60 degrees Celsius, even though the mercury pointed at 39.
Yes, the real feel temperature was
Yeah.
much higher.
네. 이제 39도의 온도였는데요. 이제 그 기온이 실제 체감 온도로 다가왔을 때는 60도 정도로 느껴질 정도로 상당히 많이 더웠다고 하고 결국은 이 20대 관객이 탈수 현상으로 인해서 아쉽게도 사망을 했다고 합니다. So yeah, the concert for Saturday was then put off.
Yes.
Right, this is the first vocabulary we want to look at, and it's due to do something.
Yes, was due to means that she was scheduled to, or she was meant to. She had plans to do something. It's different from due to such and such, meaning because of something. Here it means that there were plans for Taylor Swift to perform. She had the schedules in line and she was supposed to. However, she postponed it because of this incident.
네. 자, be due to do something. 이렇게 뒤에 바로 동사가 따라오면은요. 이렇게 하기로 되어 있었다라는 뜻입니다. 그렇지만 be due to something 아니면 someone 이렇게 바로 뒤에 명사가 왔을 때는요. 누구 때문이다. 이것 때문이다 라는 because of의 의미가 되니까요. 주의해 주시면 되겠습니다. 자, 여기서는 Taylor Swift was due to perform.
Yes.
동사가 나왔죠. 그러니까 이렇게 할 예정이었다라는 뜻으로 해석을 할 수 있겠고 shortly before.
Yes, shortly before means right before. So just a while before doing something.
shortly before가 뭐뭐 하기 직전에 라는 의미가 있고요. 그냥 shortly만 쓰면은 shortly we will be talking about blah blah blah.
That's right.
그럼 잠시 후에 라는 미래의 의미가 있을 수 있어요.
That's right.
그러니까 언제 어떻게 쓰느냐에 따라서 의미가 좀 달라집니다. American singer Taylor Swift has postponed a concert she was due to perform in Brazil on Saturday after a fan died shortly before her show in Rio de Janeiro on Friday.
The guitar that the late Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain used during his last tour in 1994 has sold for more than $1.5 million at an auction house.
록그룹 너바나의 리더였던 고 커트 코베인이 1994년 마지막 투어에서 연주했던 기타가 경매에서 150만 달러 이상, 우리 돈으로 20억 원이 넘는 액수에 팔렸습니다. Tell us more.
Well, I think I'm that generation where I've experienced both the immense popularity of Kurt Cobain and also experienced his untimely death. And so it was an icon. He was an icon.
Yeah.
And he actually was very much loved. And they played their final show on March 1st, 1994 in Munich, Germany, in fact. And so now it was up for auction quite recently. And I was quite surprised to hear the final price. I thought that, yes, it was quite popular, but I didn't really realize that it would go up for that much.
맞아요.
Yes.
그리고 이번에 이제 20억 원, 150만 달러 이상의 낙찰이 된 기타고요. 이제 펜더 머스탱
Yes.
이라고 한다고 하죠. 그리고 그 최근에 Smells Like Teen Spirit
Yes.
뮤직비디오에 보면은 이제 또 다른 기타가 나오는데 거기에 있었던 그 기타가 최근에 예, 또 역시 낙찰이 되기도 했습니다. 자, 그래요. All right. Well, we're talking about a legend here, but he's a late legend. Let's look at the expression here, the late someone.
Oh, the late someone means that this person has already passed. So you don't put late on someone who's living. So you
Unless
would never.
it's a joke and they're very late, you know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be a cruel joke, but yes, it would be a joke. Yeah, but usually it's used on people who have already passed. And I would like to mention that Kurt Cobain used to destroy a lot of his guitars on stage.
Oh, I see.
Yes, but this one still was intact. That's why
good.
it was up for auction. Yes.
네. 사람 이름 앞에 the late를 붙이면은요. 고인이 된 이라는 뜻입니다. 그래서 반드시 the late 이렇게
That's
쓰셔야
right.
돼요. 네. a late도 안 되고 그냥 late도 안 되고요.
That means that you're just physically
네,
late.
그렇죠. 근데 the late라고 이렇게 탁 했을 때는 고인이 된 누구누구라는 의미가 있습니다. The only other time I've heard this with a person who was living was with Madonna. Not Madonna, sorry.
Who?
Is it Madonna? No. Marilyn Monroe. Sorry.
Oh, yes,
sorry.
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe and Madonna mixed up.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. When she was supposed to sing for JFK.
That's right.
And she was deliberately a little bit late. It was all staged.
Yes, that's
And
right.
so the person introducing her onto the stage, he says, "Here is Marilyn Monroe," and then she didn't appear.
Oh.
And then he says, "Where is she?" And then again he introduces her. Here is the late Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
So in that case, it was
it
just a
works.
funny little joke. She was not dead. She was alive. But of course, well, now she is the late Marilyn Monroe.
That's right.
자, 그 다음으로는요, frontman.
So if you're a front man, you're a leader of a group. Usually it's used in like a rock band or a pop band even. Or you can also say this to a person who represents an organization.
The person who's at the front.
Yes.
And because this
Literally.
expression is a very old expression, that's why it says front man.
Yes.
It's not very PC.
No.
But we don't say front
Woman,
person.
person, no.
Yeah, you could say front woman, but
Yeah.
I've never heard of front person.
No, I don't think it's been used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could just say front man, front person. I don't know. Actually, come to think of it, it wouldn't be too odd or awkward to say
Front
it.
person. Yeah, I
front
guess so.
woman.
Yeah.
그래요. 자, 어쨌든 frontman이라는 표현, 리더입니다. 리더. 맨 앞에 서 있는 사람. 네, 대표하는 사람이니까요. 네, 그룹의 리더라는 뜻으로 썼고 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The guitar that the late Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain used during his last tour in 1994 has sold for more than $1.5 million at an auction house.
Exports of Korean instant noodles surpassed the 1 trillion won mark during the first 10 months of this year, with China, the US and Japan being the largest importers, according to state data.
올해 1월에서 10월 우리나라 라면 수출액이 1조 원을 넘어섰으며 최대 수입국은 중국과 미국, 일본이라는 통계 자료가 나왔습니다. So ramen is gaining popularity around the world.
It is, and, well, I think it's quite fitting because it's celebrating its 60th birthday.
Is that right?
Yes, this year is the 60th anniversary of the release of Korea's first ramyeon, instant noodles. 1963 was when they first came out, and they have soared to a record high of $785.2 million. That's 1.1 trillion won, imported by other countries between January and October of this year.
And we're talking about not just the normal ramyuns, but the different flavored ones as well.
All of them, whether
of
it
them.
be the spicy chicken or the carbonara or the who knows what. I
Yeah.
can't keep count. There's too many in the supermarket.
And pop culture has played a big role in making this
Of
a
course.
big thing, right?
I mean, for one, I think the Oscar-winning Parasite, Gi Seng-chung, sort of sparked this craze of the
Yeah.
idea that you can mix your ramyeon together, your instant noodles, you know, your the japaguri as it was called,
they
with the
made
steak.
that term,
Yeah,
exactly.
but also we've seen pop stars eating ramyeon. I think recently there was Jimin from BTS who was spotted enjoying some hot and spicy ramyeon, and
course.
that boosted sales as well. It should be said China's the biggest importer, followed by the United States, then Japan and the Netherlands. But let's face it, everybody loves instant noodles.
Indeed. Well, let's look at the first vocabulary, which is instant.
If something is instant, it happens just like that, immediately, or takes very little time at all, because instant noodles aren't really instant. They don't take 0 seconds, they take a couple of minutes, but they're very, very quick compared to normal noodles.
네, 라면을 영어로는 이제 instant noodles라고 해서요. 즉석 면으로 해석을 우리가 직역을 할 수 있겠죠. instant는 우리가 사진 찍을 때도 instant, I think, did we ever use the word instant when taking pictures in the past? Or is
Well, the
that just
photos come
particular-
out in an instant, you might
Okay.
say, yes.
I was thinking of a particular brand, but then I shouldn't say it. So instant, anyway, it means immediately, right now.
Exactly, and it's used for a lot of these prepared products that only need to be stuck in the microwave for a couple of minutes, or you just need to add hot water to it.
Yes, indeed. 그래서 이제 뭔가 이제 즉석에서 즉시 뭐뭐 이런 의미가 있을 때 instant라고 얘기를 하죠. Could you give us an example with food?
When I was a kid, instant mashed potatoes were popular. The concept boggled my young mind.
어렸을 때 즉석 메시포테이토가 굉장히 인기가 많았는데 아니 이렇게 가루 형태로 즉석에서 만들 수 있는 게 나오다니 나는 깜짝 놀랐다. It boggled my mind라고 했습니다.
I just couldn't believe that you could make mashed potatoes from powder and water.
그러니까 뜨거운 물만 섞으면은 mashed potatoes 만들 수 있긴 하죠. But I actually prefer making it from scratch.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like boiling your own potatoes and then mashing them with a little bit of cream and butter and salt and pepper.
Exactly. It takes a long time, but for me, I think it just tastes better.
And if you want a real British dish, get yourself some sausages and have bangers and mash.
There you go. 네, bangers and mash, sausages and mashed potatoes죠. 자, instant food, 즉석 요리 했고요. 그 다음에 importer.
Now, not to confuse, because in this case, we're not talking about a business that's importing something. We're talking about a country. So here, we're talking about China, the US, and Japan being the largest importers. So in these cases, these are countries that are importing a product, bringing it into their country.
Right.
Korea is the exporter. But we also use importer and exporter for individual businesses, meaning they're the ones shipping in or shipping out the product.
네, 수입하는 주체를 importer라고 할 텐데 여기서는 나라니까요. 수입국이 되겠습니다. Here's the headline again. Exports of Korean instant noodles surpassed the 1 trillion won mark during the first 10 months of this year, with China, the US, and Japan being the largest importers, according to state data.
Far-right libertarian outsider Javier Milei has won Argentina's presidential runoff poll, according to provisional results.
아르헨티나 대통령 선거 결선 투표 잠정 집계에 따르면 극우 자유주의를 표방하는 아웃사이더 하비에르 밀레이 후보가 당선된 것으로 나타났습니다. Well, the latest results show that Javier Milei has won the election.
Yes, well, and his rival, the economy minister Sergio Massa, has already called him to concede, so it's pretty much his, I think. I think there's no dispute there.
The new president of Argentina.
And he's going to be an interesting one.
Okay.
He's had some interesting policies, including basically getting rid of the central bank. Supporters have loved this. They want big changes. And he's talked about introducing the US dollar as the country's official currency. His supporters say, yay! Economists, though, are saying this could lead to financial disaster. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been congratulating him, saying, make Argentina great again. We'll see what happens, but Argentina is in a desperate struggle right now. Annual inflation is at a whopping 140%.
Yeah, Milei is saying that he's going to, quote unquote, exterminate inflation.
Yes, which is maybe harder to do than it is to say. The thing is, 2 in 5 people are living in poverty in Argentina right now. So it's a desperate situation for a lot of citizens. And certainly him winning shows that people are desperate for change. Whether he can provide that change, we'll have to wait and see. But certainly he seems to have some extreme and interesting policies in mind.
Absolutely. 자, 아르헨티나의 새 대통령으로 당선된 밀레이 대통령 얘기고요. 저희 헤드라인에서는 물론 그에 앞서서 밀레이 후보가 이 잠정 집계에 따르면은 결선 투표에서 당선된 것으로 나타난다. 이렇게 조금 앞선 소식이었습니다. All right, so let's have a look at the main expressions. This is about Milei. He is a libertarian.
Yes, so libertarian is when we talk about politics and we talk about a political philosophy or mindset. If you are a libertarian, you believe that the government shouldn't really be involved in anything. There should be minimal involvement from the state in terms of business and the free market and individual citizens' behavior and rights. So, for example, the government shouldn't be involved in the hospitals or shouldn't be involved in the schools. They should all be privately run and the free market will take care of everything. Whether you believe that or not is up to you, but it's one populist political viewpoint that has become more popular all over the world in the past few years.
That's right. 자유가 liberty죠. 그래서 우리가 the Statue of Liberty, 그럼
Yes.
자유의 여신상이잖아요. 자, libertarian은 같은 어원인데요. 자유주의자라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 자유주의를 표방하는 그런 정치인이 되겠고요. And the results that we have in our headlines is for the provisional the provisional results of the election.
Yes, meaning they're the results we have for now.
Yeah.
And they could change. It's unlikely that there'll be any significant change, but it may mean that there are postal ballots that have not been counted, that maybe we don't have the complete result yet. So, for example, in the US elections or some other elections, the news networks are predicting the win for whatever president, whatever candidate. And when most of the votes have come in, you can say this is the provisional result. It's not the final result. That'll come later. So provisional is something that's happening now and can be changed later.
provisional이라는 게 그러니까 임시의 잠정적인 무언가라는 뜻으로 여기서 쓰였습니다. provisional results는 잠정 결과, 잠정 집계가 되겠죠. What's your example?
I got my provisional driving license so I could take lessons on the road.
우리나라는 이런 게 없는데
네.
이제 임시 운전면허증이에요. 영국에서는 이런 게 있죠.
Yes, so for new drivers, let's say if you're turning, is it 17 in the UK, I think, when you can start to learn to drive.
forget.
You know, you want to let your mum or dad take you out on the road and to start to get experience. You can't just get in the car and start driving. You have to apply for a provisional license. So it's not a full license, but it allows you to get on the road with a supervised teacher, be it a parent or a driving instructor, so that you can practice to eventually take your test and get the proper license.
영국에서는 운전면허 따기가 굉장히 힘들죠. 복잡하고 절차 자체가 우리나라랑 좀 다른데 이 provisional driving license 미국에서도 아마 이런 거 있을
네.
거예요. 네, 조금 이른 나이에 운전면허를 딸 수 있는 대신에 바로 처음부터 그 어른들이랑 똑같은 면허를 주는 건 아니고요. 그런 임시 면허라든지 아니면은 좀 이렇게 underage인데 운전을 할 수 있는 그런 provisional license를 발급을 합니다. 그래서 그걸로도 잘 운전을 하면 나중에는 이제 진짜 본격적인 라이센스가 나오죠. provisional 이렇게 임시라는 뜻으로도 쓴다는 거. Well, this TV celebrity turned president is the news. 예, 원래는 연예인 출신이었는데 이제
Yes.
대통령이 됐습니다.
But I mean, we've seen several of them, Donald Trump, but also President Vladimir Zelensky in the
Yes,
Ukraine. They all come
그렇습니다.
from entertainment backgrounds.
맞아요. 다 이제 텔레비전 출연을 해서 잘 알려진 인물들이 이제 정치인이 된 경우들이 있는데요. 아르헨티나 역시 지금 마찬가지입니다.
Exactly. Go back to the 1980s, we have Ronald Reagan as well, who was a
Yes.
film star.
That's true. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Far-right libertarian outsider Javier Milei has won Argentina's presidential runoff poll according to provisional results.
Brazil has experienced its 8th heatwave of the year so far, with the National Meteorological Institute putting large swathes of the country under red alert as temperatures soar to dangerously high levels.
브라질에 올해 들어 8번째 폭염이 엄습해 기온이 위험한 수준까지 치솟자 브라질 국립기상연구소가 전국 대부분 지역에 적색경보를 발령했습니다. Okay, so we've been hearing a lot of stories coming out of Brazil about the weather and how it's extremely dangerously high.
Yeah, this year has been astonishing. Records for highest temperatures were set in July, in August, September, and October. This week, they were saying that temperatures were expected to rewrite climate history. So we're talking about a real danger here. One of the reasons for it that experts are saying is the strong El Nino that we've seen coming this year, but also with the climate crisis increasing that intensity and the frequency of these kind of events, these heat waves becoming more and more likely. So we saw, temperatures above 40 degrees across the center, west, and southeast. In Colombo, on the border of Bolivia, on Wednesday, there was a peak of 43.3 degrees. Also, temperatures were hitting 37.7 in Sao Paulo, 42.6 in Rio de Janeiro. They were breaking records for the year. In Rio, their nickname is Hell de Janeiro because, the real feel there on Saturday was 59.7,
Yeah.
the real feel. So not the actual temperature, but what it felt like.
In fact, yesterday, I think we had a Taylor Swift story.
Oh, it's such a sad story about that fan who died because of the heat, basically.
Yeah. So one of her concerts in Rio de Janeiro was cancelled exactly because of the weather, and one of the fans there ended up passing out because of dehydration.
Yeah, and while many people may think of Brazil and beaches and nice weather and getting in the pool, the reality is you've got buses that don't have air conditioning that works, schools that don't have air conditioning or even fans, because just like Argentina, which we talked about just before, there are serious problems in terms of social inequality. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but certainly it's a dangerous situation for many residents of Brazil.
네. 브라질에서 38도, 또 어떤 지역은 43도까지 오르기도 했는데요. 실제로 이제 체감 온도는 영어로는 the real feel, 이게 뭐 거의 60도에 육박했다.
네.
네, 이런 얘기를 지금 해주셨습니다. 자, 첫 번째 표현 볼 텐데요. I believe there are two different ways to pronounce this word.
You want to fight over it, Sue?
How do you say it?
I say swathe, and I
Yep.
know that you say swath.
Yeah, I think that's the more American way. But both are okay?
And there's also two different spellings. S-W-A-T-H-E, which is why I think it's pronounced swathe for me, and then S-W-A-T-H, which for me makes sense to be pronounced swath. In any case, they mean the same thing, and they just mean a large area of something. So we use it often when talking about geography, about weather movements, or about something that's affecting a large part of a district or a country, because it means a large area.
네. 길거나 넓은 어떤 면적을 말합니다. 여기서는 이제 그렇게 많은 지역이 이렇게 폭염으로 시달리고 있다는 뜻이 되겠고요. It's dangerously high.
Yeah, meaning it puts people in danger. It could hurt them, it could hospitalize them, it could kill them. So when we use the term dangerously high levels in the news, we're probably talking about two things, usually. One will be temperatures or dangerously low temperatures. The other will be pollution. Dangerously high levels of pollution. And we've had news stories we've covered on the show before, where there have been some cities, for example, where if you look at the air pollution index, it's been up to 300 or 400. It's been dangerously high.
Yeah, exactly. Dangerously is an adverb. So after this, you can add an adjective. 부사예요. 그래서 위험할 정도로 뭐뭐뭐하다. Dangerously high, dangerously low, dangerously big, small, whatever.
Dangerously talented.
Dangerously talented. 위험할 정도로 재능이 많아.
Well, you can actually use it.
You can say that.
It's a bit silly to say that, but you might have a press release where they talk about the dangerously talented pop star sings a new album.
그렇게 말할 수도 있겠죠. 네. 자, 아까 그 swathe 또는 swath 예문도 주시겠어요?
Come January, it's likely that swathes of Korea will be covered in snow, and swaths of Korea will be covered in snow too.
Come January, 1월이 되면 아마 한국의 많은 지역이 눈에 덮여 있을 겁니다.
And can we just take a moment to recognize we've already had our first snow this winter?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Well, there you go. Here's the headline one more time. Brazil has experienced its 8th heat wave of the year so far, with the National Meteorological Institute putting large swaths or swathes of the country under red alert as temperatures soar to dangerously high levels.
The volcanic Nishinoshima Island in Japan, located about 930 kilometers south of mainland Tokyo, has grown at least 14 times larger in the past 10 years.
일본 도쿄에서 남쪽으로 930km 떨어진 곳에 위치한 화산섬 니시노시마가 지난 10년 동안 화산 활동으로 인해 최소 14배로 커진 것으로 나타났습니다.
It's incredible. We're seeing geological change in action. I learnt in school about Pangaea, about, back when the world was just one continent and then because of the plates it all split apart. But we're seeing this happen in our lifetimes. So this island, Nishinoshima, appeared after an eruption on November 20th, 2013. And so we had this new island popping up, and then it started off being just 200 meters in diameter. And then with lava and more lava, it expanded and joined Nishinoshima in December. So we get this new island that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The original is now 14 times bigger than the original.
The area,
so it's now about 4 square kilometers.
Wow.
So it's quite incredible that this is going on. The sad thing about it is that it used to be one of Japan's leading seabird breeding grounds, but after the eruption, the ecosystem has been reset. So it's going to be interesting. It's sad that we've lost this breeding ground, but at the same time, scientists will get to study to see what will happen. This new ecosystem is being created from scratch because there are no other islands for about 130 kilometers around Nishinoshima. So I think scientists, geologists, and environmentalists will be watching very carefully.
정말 놀랍네요. 10년이라는 비교적 짧은 시간 안에 이렇게 화산 활동 때문에 굉장히 많은 면적의 땅이 생긴 거라고 볼 수 있겠죠. 화산 활동 때문에 섬의 면적이 14배 정도 커졌다. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. Volcanic island.
Jeju.
Yes.
That's the definition. Jeju's a volcanic island. A volcanic island is an island where there is a volcano. Now, this could be an extinct volcano, meaning it will never erupt again. It could be a dormant volcano, meaning it's not doing anything at the moment, but it could erupt later. Or it could be an active volcano, which means everyone's being careful and watching to see if there's going to be an eruption anytime soon.
네. 세 가지 화산. 일단은 활화산. active volcano. 그다음에 휴화산은 dormant. 네, 갑자기 생각이 안 나네요. dormant volcano. 그리고 사화산 extinct volcano. 이렇게 세 가지가 있죠. volcanic island는 화산 섬이 되겠습니다.
Yeah, and I have a volcanic grandfather outside my front door.
You do?
It's a harobang.
Oh, 돌하루방. Really?
Yes, a little one from Jeju Island made from volcanic rock.
그렇군요. 자, 그리고 이제 본토라는 표현도 있는데요. mainland.
Yes, you have islands which are surrounded by water, and then you have the mainland, which is not surrounded by water. But the thing is, everywhere's surrounded by water. Basically means you're attached to part of a large mass of land. For example, Korea is a peninsula, but it's still attached to the rest of the continent. So we can say Korea is the mainland, whereas Jeju-do or Ulleung-do or Dokdo are islands.
Yes, indeed. What's your example?
If you grew up on Jeju Island, then your first trip to the mainland must have been exciting.
네, mainland가 본토라는 뜻이 있어서요. 만약에 제주도에서 나서 자랐다면은 처음으로 본토로 여행을 갔을 때 아마 굉장히 신나지 않았을까 이런 예문을 가지고 오셨어요. 그렇지만 실제로 제주도 분들은 육지라 그러죠. 육지 means land.
Yes.
That's the term they use to refer to the mainland.
Just as land,
Just
rather
land.
than mainland. Yeah,
Yes,
fair enough.
They go to the land.
Yeah, but I know my father grew up on an island, the Isle of Man, and he moved to the mainland when he was 16, and suddenly the world opened up for him.
Oh, interesting. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The volcanic Nishinoshima Island in Japan, located about 930 kilometers south of mainland Tokyo, has grown at least 14 times larger in the past 10 years. And this is our final heading.
A bicorn hat worn by Napoleon Bonaparte during his reign as French emperor has fetched a record $2.1 million at an auction in Paris.
나폴레옹 보나파르트가 프랑스 황제로 재위하던 시절 썼던 이각 모자가 프랑스 파리에서 열린 경매에서 210만 달러, 우리 돈으로 21억 원이 넘는 기록적인 액수에 낙찰됐습니다. 우리가 나폴레옹 하면은 상징적인 그 모자가 있죠.
Yes, worn. I'm trying to remember whether he wore it front to back or side to side.
이쪽이었나?
Yeah, side to side, I think it
그랬던 것
was.
같기도 하네요. 네.
He had 120 of them. And there are only 20 remaining, so they're very rare.
그래서 여기서 a bicorn hat,
Yeah,
not the bicorn hat.
No, because he had a few. Let's face it, he was rich enough to have a few hats. And so it was estimated that it would go for 600,000 to 800,000 euros, but ended up going for 1.884 million. Beat the 884 million euros that another of his hats went for 2.1 million dollars. It's a huge amount of money. I think it's because everybody's talking about Napoleon at the moment. There's a new movie directed by Ridley Scott starring Joaquin Phoenix as the emperor himself, so everybody's excited. And it's quite incredible that, you know, his hat is available, that it's still in existence. Some are in museums, 5 are in private collections. And, I mean, the lucky person who has Napoleon's hat, I don't know whether they're going to wear it, display it, or do what with it.
이런 바이콘 하트가 한 120개 정도 있었답니다. 그래서 지금 French Emperor로 재위하던 시절에 썼던 모자이지만 그게 그 중에 하나인 거예요. 그렇기 때문에 정관사를 쓰지 않고 부정관사, bicon hat, the bicon hat가 아닌 거죠. 그 중에 하나. 자, 이 표현부터 보겠습니다. What is a bicon hat?
To understand the word bicon, I think first we have to go to the mythical creature that many young girls love.
Unicorn.
The unicorn. And they are very much related. Uni means one, bi means two. Unicycle, bicycle, unicorn, bicorn. Two horns. This is where it comes from. And if you take a look at a painting of Napoleon, you'll see that these two horns, or this crescent shape, they stick out on the side. So I think of it a bit like a croissant, really.
Yeah.
but it point is, it has 2 points. What's interesting is that Napoleon, I think he wore it side to side because his officers would wear it front to back. So he was sort of distinguishing himself from them to show that he was the emperor. But a bicorn hat has 2 points, 2 horns, as it were.
그렇습니다. 지금 설명해 주신 대로요. by가 들어가면은 둘이라는 뜻이 있어서 자전거도 보통 이제 두발 자전거니까 bicycle 이렇게 얘기를 하고요. 만약에 세발 자전거면 tricycle.
Yes.
하나면은 unicycle 하지 않고 그때는 unicycle이라고 발음을 하죠. 자, 콘은 우리 유니콘 할 때처럼 뿔이에요. 근데 바이콘이니까 마치 뿔이 2개 달려 있는 것 같은 모자, 이각 모자가 되겠습니다. 자, 옥션 할 때 특히 많이 나오는 단어 하나 더 볼게요. fetching 얼마.
Yeah, it means the amount of money that somebody bought it for. So we don't use this for something that you buy in a supermarket. It's always when there's some sort of competitive element to the bidding, to the buying. And we say that something fetched this amount, meaning it was sold for this amount.
fetch라는 것 자체는 뭘 가져오다라는 뜻이지만요. 특히 낙찰을 얘기를 할 때 이 물건이 이만큼의 돈을 가져왔다. 이만큼의 낙찰이 됐다라는 뜻으로 fetch 얼마 합니다. 자, 예문 주시죠.
I put up a signed photo of myself for auction. It fetched a whole 3,000 won.
나는 내가 직접 사인을 한 사진을 경매에 붙였는데 그것으로 인해서 내가 무려 3,000원이나 벌었어.
It's because I'm dangerously talented.
You are indeed. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. A bicorn hat worn by Napoleon Bonaparte during his reign as French emperor has fetched a record $2.1 million at an auction in Paris. And that's it for our headlines.
During the first 10 months of the year, the number of countries importing kimchi increased to 93, the highest to date, with outbound shipments reaching $130 million.
올해 1월에서 10월 우리나라 김치를 수입한 국가 수가 역대 최고치인 93개국까지 늘면서 김치 수출액이 1억 3천만 달러에 달하는 것으로 나타났습니다.
Yeah.
Very popular.
Very popular.
Yeah.
93 countries. That's quite a number there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think of countries that typically enjoyed, kimchi, we would think of our neighboring countries perhaps, but this is way more than that, isn't it?
It's way more. So it was the highest number to date, and it was from of course, the January-October period, and it was an increase from 87 countries tallied the previous year. And they say Japan, of course, our closest neighbor, is the largest importer, and it was followed by the U.S., the Netherlands, Britain, and Hong Kong. And I was surprised to hear of the Netherlands following the U.S. in importing kimchi.
Wow. So Japan was number one, and then the next biggest importer was the US and the Netherlands, Britain, and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
There's an increase of about 6 more countries compared to last year.
Yeah. So
Wow.
a lot more countries. And they say that, there's been an increase or a steady increase of imports in kimchi in other countries because of COVID. Because a lot of health conscious people, we started hearing, maybe Koreans
didn't get COVID as much in the early stages of COVID because they eat a lot of garlic, because they eat fermented food. Maybe it's because of kimchi. And I think a lot of researchers did do some studies on that. So word started spreading around. So they say that a record level was set for imports of, or exports, I guess, in Korean terms, exports of kimchi back in 2021. But the level that was the record that was set in 2021, it surpassed that level this year.
I think you'll remember back when the SARS was spreading around the world. It was very hard to find Korean people with this. And again, back then as well, people were saying maybe it's because of kimchi.
But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of studies that's been done on garlic and how it helps our immune system.
Yeah, exactly.
And kimchi uses a lot of garlic.
Yes, it's very good for you. It's also tasty as well. Although I think it takes kids some time to get used to kimchi, even in Korea. This is my personal experience. But yeah, I mean, there are so many health benefits, as we mentioned earlier on. Apparently 22 health benefits.
22.
That's why November 22nd is then designated as Kimchi Day.
Yeah, and everything I think comes together for that day because that's when everyone, you know, starts to prepare for kimjang, for the winter season. So yeah, it's a perfect day for Kimchi Day.
Yes. All right, let's have a look at the main vocabulary. The first one is the highest to date.
Right. So when we say something to date, it means until now. So if something is highest to date, it means it's reached the biggest number or the highest or the most until now.
To date 라는 표현이 지금까지라는 의미가 있습니다. 그래서 the highest to date는 지금까지 중에서 여러 가지 데이터 중에서 가장 높은 수치를 보이고 있다. 역대 최고치가 되겠죠. 그 다음에는요, to reach something.
Right. So to reach something, it means, you know, in this term, we're hitting a certain number or a figure, we're attaining or extending to a certain level or condition. So we use this a lot when we're talking about exports, imports, those figures, trade figures. So my example sentence has to do with that as well. So I said exports hit a record high, reaching $13.5 billion this year.
To reach actually means 어디 이렇게 손이 닿는 거를 말하죠. 원래는. 예. 그렇지만 이제 숫자 얘기를 할 때는 여기에 다다르는 이라는 의미가 되겠습니다. 그래서 $130 million에 달하는 그런 outbound shipments. 그런 이제 우리는 수출액이 되겠죠. 그러면 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. During the first 10 months of the year, the number of countries importing kimchi increased to 93, the highest to date, with outbound shipments reaching $130 million.
Yale University is set to launch a new academic program next year focused on Korean studies in fields and disciplines, including but not limited to history, film studies, literature, language and linguistics, anthropology, and sociology.
내년 미국 예일대학교에 한국 역사, 영화학, 문학, 언어학, 인류학, 사회학 등 다양한 분야를 다루는 한국학 전공이 개설될 전망입니다. Okay. So this is incredibly good news.
This is very exciting news.
It's also going with the trend because K-pop, K-culture is huge. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I think I've been reading in the news these past few years that there's been heightened interest in students wanting to learn Korean. And in the past, when I studied in the US, there were certain schools that had Korean language programs. They had Korean language classes, but they were very limited. I remember, you know, there were Japanese language classes, Chinese language classes, and the Korean language classes were mostly for Korean students, you know, the second generation Korean students who wanted to get back in touch with their roots.
But now it's people who don't have any roots.
Exactly. But now there's been such a big increase in the number of students who are wanting to learn Korean because of this whole K-pop culture boom that's been going on all over the world. So at Yale, at the Department of East Asian Studies, they're going to launch this Korean Studies academic program next fall. And they say it's the first time in 323 years since Yale opened its doors back in the 1700s.
1701년에 개교했더라고요. 예일 대학교가.
It's a very prestigious and very historic school.
Absolutely. 뭐 예일대 우리 모르지 않죠. 누구도. 그래서 그런 학교가 개교한 지가 벌써 323년이 됐습니다. 그래서 이제 많은 헤드라인에는 예일대 323년 만에 한국 학개설하다 이렇게 얘기했는데 이제 한마디로 개교.
Yeah.
한
Since its
이후
opening, yes.
그만큼의 시간이 많이 흘렀고요. 이제 처음으로 이렇게 한국학 전공이 개설이 된다. 실제로 이제 예전에는 Korean American들 교포라든지 부모님이 한국인이거나 조부모님이 한국 분이신데 나는 이제 미국인이다라는 그런 Korean American들이 그 뿌리에 대해서 좀 배우기 위해
Yeah.
그래서 한국어를 좀 많이 배웠다면 요즘은 그냥 한국에 관심이 많은 한국과 아무 상관은 없지만 우리 가족과 아무 상관없이 그러나 한국을 사랑하는 많은 팬들이 생기다 보니 이렇게 공부하는 사람들도 늘었네요.
Yeah.
너무나 긍정적인 변화입니다. Alright, let's have a look at the first vocabulary, which is discipline.
Right. So discipline, we use this a lot when we talk about disciplining our children. But this is not the way it's used in our headline.
Yeah.
Here, discipline refers to an area of study. So it's like a branch of knowledge, and we usually use this when we're talking about areas of study in higher education, like in colleges.
Sure.
When we're talking about disciplines, as in in humanities or arts in liberal arts or sciences.
디스플린이라는 게 그러니까 우리가 가정 내에서는 훈계라는 뜻으로 쓰지만 그 뜻이 아니고요. 여기서는 대학교의 학과목을 말합니다. Different disciplines and fields 이런 표현이 나오고요. It includes but it's not limited to라는 표현이 나와요.
Right. So when you're including but not limiting, it's usually saying that a situation might include certain things, but these are not the only things that are included.
포함되어 있는데 이것만이 아니다라는 뜻이 되겠죠. 그래서 무엇에 국한되지 않았다. It's not limited to 뭐뭐뭐. 반대로 딱 국한된 그 한정 수량의 뭔가 있을 때 우리가 limited edition이라고
Yes,
하잖아요.
right.
이게 국한된 겁니다. 한마디로 말하면은. 예, 그래서 이게 limited라는 것 자체가 딱 정해진. 근데 그게 아니라는 거죠. 한국학 전공에는 이러이러이러한 것들을 배우는데 이것만이 아니다. 그 외에도 더 굉장히 다양한 것들을 배울 수 있다라는 얘기가 되겠습니다.
So I think you can understand it as rather than just learning the language, you can learn many different aspects of Korean culture.
Yeah. What's your example sentence?
My example sentence is, there are many activities, including but not limited to running, jumping, and hiking.
여러 가지 활동들이 있는데 거기에는 뭐 달리기, 그다음에 점핑, 그리고 등반이나 등산 이런 것들이 포함되어 있지만 여기에 국한된 것은 아니다. 이런 예문이 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼까요? Yale University is set to launch a new academic program next year focused on Korean studies in fields and disciplines including, but not limited to, history, film studies, literature, language and linguistics, anthropology, and sociology. Let's take a break.
South Korean footballer Kim Min-jae, who recently signed for Bayern Munich from Napoli, has had a rice cooker stolen from outside his new house while moving in.
최근 나폴리에서 바이에른 뮌헨으로 소속 구단을 옮긴 한국 축구의 김민재 선수가 새 집으로 이사하는 과정에서 밥솥을 도난당한 것으로 알려졌습니다. 아니, 밥심으로 운동을 하는 선수가 밥솥을 어떻게 된 겁니까?
Yeah, so apparently he was robbed outside his house when he joined Bayern Munich, and this was in the British Daily. It was the Daily,
Right.
And they were kind of pointing out that the new team Bayern Munich wasn't treating their new player well, despite paying a very handsome fee for him. Apparently, the highest for an Asian player to date. So they were saying, why aren't they getting him a nice new rice cooker? Or it
I
was such
see.
a big issue.
Right.
But yeah, it's because he turned down the opportunity to join Manchester United because he signed for Bayern Munich.
아하. 왜 맨유를 두고 바이에른 뮤니크로 갔느냐. 이런 시각으로 쓰여진 기사입니다.
Yes.
영국에서 쓴 기사인데요. 그 바이에른 뮤니크까지 갔으면은 밥솥 지금 도난당했는데.
Yeah, get him a
바이에른
new
뮤니크
one.
밥솥 하나 사줘라.
Yeah, get him a nice one.
만약 맨유 조인했으면은 우리는 사줬을 텐데.
we would have
이런
yeah.
이런 시각으로
Yeah,
기사를
exactly.
약간 유머러스하게 썼어요. 그리고 참고로 영어는 사실 유머가 반이라고 말하면 좀 과장이겠지만 정말 유머는 너무나 중요하거든요.
Yeah.
영어에서는. 그래서 그런 게 좀 느껴지는 기사였습니다. 저도 원문으로 쭉 읽어봤는데 물론 이제 밥솥을 도난 당한 것은 이제 안타까운 일이지만
of course,
그
of course.
자체가
Yeah.
뉴스라기보다는 이제 옮긴 거.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, he's the highest paid Asian player to
Yeah.
date, right? So he can buy another rice cooker. It's probably not that big of a deal for him. But they were just pointing out that, hey, why aren't you treating your player very well? We would have treated him a lot better.
Exactly. All right. Well, hopefully he has a new one because I can't imagine my life without a 밥솥.
A rice cooker, yeah.
그래요. 밥솥 영어로는 이제 그 전기밥솥 말하는 거죠. 라이스 쿠커라고 하는데 김민재, he has signed for Bayern Munich
Right.
from Napoli.
Right. So signed for, so we're using the verbs to sign, which also means, when you're signing something, when you're signing a document. But here it means to join a team by signing a contract with them or engage to work for a team or someone by signing a contract with them. But you can also say to sign with. I
Right.
think we've also
Yeah.
dealt with this before. So you can sign for a team or you can sign with a team.
아하, to sign, 서명하는 겁니다. 사인한다라는 거는요. 그래서 바이에른 뮤니크와의 계약서에다가 사인을 한 거니까 한마디로 그쪽으로 구단을 옮긴 걸 말하는 거죠. 또 연예인 사인은 달라요.
Oh, yeah.
네, 연예인 사인 요즘은 사실 사인 잘 안 받죠. 그냥 이제 사진을 같이 찍긴 하는데 그 사인은 영어로 autograph라고
Yeah,
하죠.
yeah.
네.
So you wouldn't ask them, "Can I have your sign, please?"
No, you
Yeah,
would say, "Can I have your autograph?"
Exactly. Or you could also say, "Can I have your signature?"
오케이, 네, 그래요. 그렇게 표현할 수도 있겠고. 근데 보통은 이제 그냥 그 직접 여기 사인 좀 해주시겠어요? 좋아하는 배우나 축구 선수나 뭐 이런 사람한테 얘기할 때 autograph라는 표현을
yeah.
쓰는 게 조금 더 일반적입니다.
Right. So a signature is something usually when you go to a hotel or when
Yeah.
you're going to like sign a receipt,
Right.
they would ask for your signature.
Yes, usually money is involved.
Yes.
Okay. 자, 그 다음으로는 to move in.
Right, to move in. It's basically when you're moving into a new house, you're taking possession of a new house, or it could be a business, premises, some sort of thing. So you are going there to live.
Right, right.
So for example, my mother-in-law is moving into our house to help take care of the kids.
그래서 영어에서 이 move라는 단어가요. 뭐 움직이다도 있지만 이사하다의 뜻이 있습니다. I'm moving next week 이렇게 말하면 다음 주에 나 이사해라는 뜻이고요. Move in 그러면 이사해서 어디로 들어가는 거죠. So 김민재 he was moving in and then he got his rice cooker stolen.
Yeah, probably by a fan, I would assume.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they're thinking, this is the 김민재 rice. Yeah. Right, what's your example sentence?
My mother-in-law is moving into our house to help take care of the kids.
우리 아이들을 돌봐주시기 위해서 시어머니가 우리 집으로 이사를 오시기로 같이 살기로 했다라는 의미로 move in 쓸 수도 있겠죠. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. South Korean footballer Kim Min-jae, who recently signed for Bayern Munich from Napoli, has had a rice cooker stolen from outside his new house while moving in.
A viral video showing a stainless steel tumbler surviving a devastating car fire has prompted the manufacturer of said indestructible cup gift the owner with a new car for the unintended advertisement.
대규모 차량 화재에도 멀쩡한 스테인레스 텀블러를 찍은 영상이 화제가 되자 텀블러 제조업체가 뜻하지 않은 광고 효과에 대한 감사의 표시로 사고 당사자에게 새 차를 선물하기로 했습니다. 자, 여기서 선물하다라는 동사도 같이 볼게요. gift라는 동사입니다. 우리가 보통은 gift는 명사로 많이 알고 있죠. 선물.
Right.
근데 선물하다의 의미가 여기서는 이렇게 쓰인 거예요.
Yeah, you could say, she gifted me with something.
That's
that means
right.
she gave something to me as a gift.
Indeed. And this company has decided to gift the person that was in the accident with
A new car.
Not just another cup, but a car. That's right. So what happened?
She doesn't need a new cup.
Right.
She can use her old cup.
That's true.
Her old cup is fine.
So it's a she. Who are we talking about and what happened?
Okay, so her name is Danielle Lettering, and what happened was her car was burnt to a crisp.
Oh dear.
But this video that she took, it went online, it went viral. So everyone got to see it. Apparently 82 million views so far. And so you can see the car, it's burnt down to a crisp, but something in there is fine. It hasn't been harmed at all. And it was this cup, this tumbler. And she even said that the steel tumbler was in a fire and it still has ice in it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was fine. So it could survive a war.
네, 이 화재로 인해서 이제 차에 불이 붙었어요. 차는 완전히 이렇게 전소가 된 상태인데 그 안에 유일하게 이 텀블러만 멀쩡한데 또 텀블러를 나중에 열어봤더니 그 안에 얼음까지도
Yeah.
그대로 있었답니다.
Yeah.
차가 불이 났는데도.
Yeah.
그래서 이제 차주가 이걸 올린 거죠, 소셜미디어에. 이거 봐! 이러면서.
Yeah.
대단한 텀블러지? 이러니까 나중에 이 텀블러 제조회사에서 감사하다. 이렇게 또 광고 아닌 광고죠. 어떻게 보면.
Yeah, because I mean, it shows how sturdy and indestructible we said. Indestructible is so it just it withstood a fire.
Yeah.
And it still had ice in it.
The video got more than 80 million views.
Yeah. 82 million views
Wow.
as of earlier this week.
와, 8천만 회 이상의 뷰를 기록했어요. 정말 많은 사람들이 본 거죠. 그래서 결국은 이 회사에서 차를 선물해 주기로.
Yeah, and I bet the president must be thinking, hey, why didn't we think of this as an advertisement idea, right?
Well, I'm of course very glad that no one's hurt. And also, who would have guessed this person would have gotten a new car?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the first expression, a viral video.
Right, so a viral video, so something that goes, we also use it as the expression, something going viral. So we can say, we use this when it's related to or it involves an image or a video or a piece of information that's circulated very rapidly and widely from one internet user to another. So it's kind of like a virus, so how it spreads very quickly.
네, 보통 이제 온라인상에 뭔가 바이럴하다라고 그러면은요, 급속히 퍼지는 인기가 많은 걸 말합니다. 네, 그래서 화제가 되는 인기 영상이 viral video가 되겠고요.
And my example sentence was, the viral video has amassed 1 million views in just a week.
네, 일주일 만에 그 인기 영상이 벌써 100만 뷰 이상을 기록했다. 이런 예문이고요. 자, 그 다음에는 unintended advertisement라는 표현 볼게요.
Right. So, when we're talking about this video, the president of this company did not intend for it to, did not intend for this fire to happen.
No one intended anything.
Right, for this
Right.
person to post up anything like this. So it was not planned or meant. So, and an advertisement, of course, is a notice or announcement in a public sort of medium like TV or radio that promotes a product, a service, or an event.
Now, you pronounce this word differently to me because, of course, you use an American accent. How do you say 광고 in English?
Advertisement.
I say advertisement. 강세가 달라요.
Yeah.
둘 다 맞습니다. Unintended는 의도하지 않았다, 뜻하지 않은 광고란 뜻이 되겠고요. 표현 하나 더 볼게요. 굉장히 중요한 표현인데 said라는 단어입니다.
Yes.
said cup.
Right.
said
right.
cup 그러면 해당 컵이란 뜻이에요.
Exactly. So what was mentioned.
네, 여기서 아까 얘기했던 그 해당 컵이란 뜻으로 said cup라고 합니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A viral video showing a stainless steel tumbler surviving a devastating car fire has prompted the manufacturer of said indestructible cup gift the owner with a new car for the unintended advertisement.
A man in Vietnam who amassed a small fortune by selling salted coffee on the streets, aided by social media, has chosen to give back to society by opening a restaurant that provides meals free of charge for those in need.
네, 노점상에서 소금 커피를 팔던 한 남성이 소셜미디어에서 인기를 얻으며 상당한 수입을 올리자 어려운 사람들에게 무료로 식사를 제공하는 식당을 열어 이를 사회에 환원하기로 했습니다. So this person was very grateful for all of the love he received and he decided to give back.
That's right, right. So I was very intrigued by this concept of salted coffee, but it seems to be very simple. Just it's a little bit of fermented milk with salt
Yeah.
in a traditional aluminum coffee filter, and they just mix it together with a little bit of ice. But it just kind of blew up thanks to
see.
social media.
Right,
So this owner of the shop, he opened up his first salt coffee stall, and unexpectedly or unintended, it was an unintended sort of success because it suddenly blew up to like 20 shops. So he decided, hey, I want to give back. I want to, help my
Wow.
community. I want to help those in need because he also came from a very difficult sort of background.
자신 역시도 힘들게 시작을 했었기 때문에 이제 거리에서 이런 소금 커피를 팔기 시작한 거죠. 소셜 미디어에서 입소문을 타면서 나중에는 브랜치가 20개나 생길 정도로 엄청난 인기를 끈 거예요. 그래서 나도 정말 힘든 시절이 있었는데 지금 또 역시 힘든 사람들에게 내가 이제 돈을 많이 또 벌었으니 도와줘야겠다. 환원을 해야겠다라는 마음으로 식당을 하나 열었대요. 그래서 굉장히 많은 사람들이 또 그 덕을 보고 있다고 합니다.
Yeah. And what I really enjoyed while reading this article is that not only does he do this, but the workers at his 20 shops also help out
that's
at the
wonderful.
food, at the free food restaurant.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Let's have a look at the main terms. The first one is to amass a small fortune.
Right. So I actually used this word in our example sentence before. The viral video amassed 1 million views, right? So it means to build up or to gather together or to accumulate a large number of something.
무언가를 만들어내는 것인데요. 많은 무언가. 여기선 돈이 되겠죠. A small fortune이라는 것은 상당한 수입이라고 보면
Yes.
됩니다. Even though the word small is in there, it can still be considered to be quite a lot of money.
A large amount of money.
And to give back to society?
Right. To give back to society, it means it's like philanthropy. It's to return or to do something for a charitable cause or
Sure.
to do good for your community.
네, 사회에 환원하는 것을 give back to society라고 하죠. Can you give us an example sentence?
Right. So the actress was praised for her efforts later in life to give back to society.
네. The actress was praised니까 그 배우가 굉장히 많은 칭찬을 받고 이런 걸 참 잘했다라는 소리를 들었는데요. 나중에 사회에 환원을 했기 때문에 많은 좋은 평을 받았습니다. 자, 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어볼게요. A man in Vietnam who amassed a small fortune by selling salted coffee on the streets, aided by social media, has chosen to give back to society by opening a restaurant that provides meals free of charge for those in need. 자, 지금까지 뉴스캐스터 카런과 함께한 헤드라인스였습니다. Headlines. All right, let's have a closer look at the headlines one by one.
The employment rate of working mothers reached a record high in the first half of this year, accompanied by a slight decrease in the number of women leaving their jobs due to childcare responsibilities.
올해 상반기 자녀를 키우며 일하는 여성인 워킹맘의 고용률이 역대 최고치를 기록했으며 육아로 인한 경력 단절 여성의 수는 소폭 감소했습니다. More and more working moms.
Right, and what is a working mom? So they define it as a woman, a mother who lives with children under the age of 18,
Right.
and also work. So this number was down by 13,000 from a year earlier. However, the employment rate increased by 2.2 percentage points to 60%.
네, 절대적인 숫자는 줄어들었지만 비율로 봤을 때는 늘어난 것입니다. Because the overall number of people, of course, are going down. So if we look at the absolute figures, it looks like working mothers are going down. But in fact, the percentage of those working mothers is actually going up.
Well, the employment rate is going up.
The employment rate, exactly. I too am a working mum. And so give us some stats.
Well, one of the interesting ones that I found was regardless of whether women have children or not, the overall employment rate of married women, so that's age between 15 and 54, was 64.3%. And that's an increase of 1.7 percentage points compared to last year. And another interesting thing is it also shows that more and more women now are holding high quality jobs, professional positions as well.
Well, I guess that's a positive thing because
is,
the
sure.
government has been trying to really encourage women to, have children, but at the same time be able to work, and we're seeing that right now.
And we're seeing more women continuing to work after marriage as well.
Indeed. What about people leaving their jobs because of childcare? That's going down a little bit.
Right.
Let's have a look at the main vocabulary. The first one says here, accompanied by.
So in this case, we're talking about, it says here that this new record high in the first half of the year was accompanied by a slight decrease in the number of women leaving their jobs. So that means it's happening or existing at the same time. The other way you'll often see accompanied by is someone needs to be accompanied by another person.
Right.
So normally, and you'll see signs of this, like in the States or in English-speaking countries. I remember seeing it at like amusement parks or swimming pools, places like that. You'll see a sign that say children must be accompanied by a parent or guardian.
동반되어야 한다라는 뜻의 be accompanied by인데요. 지금 레이 선생님이 얘기한 거는 미성년자는 반드시 보호자와 동행해야 한다라는 이런 사인이 외국에서 여기저기에서 볼 수 있다. What sort of places might you see that sign?
As I just mentioned,
right, sorry.
swimming pools, theme
Thank
parks,
you, yes.
places like that. Places where kids, it could be dangerous if kids are alone. Probably on subway, maybe public transportation as well.
So we're talking about young children.
Yeah, and sometimes
yeah.
it'll say children, and it'll show like under 10 years. It'll say something like that a lot of the time. Or movie theaters as well.
Yes.
Because certain movies are restricted. Kids need to be accompanied by a parent or guardian to see a certain movie.
그러네요. 네, 영화관이라든지 아니면은 테마파크, 또 수영장과 같은 곳에 아주 어린 아이들이 당연히 혼자 들어가면 안 되겠죠. 그럴 때는 보호자, 그 어른인 보호자와 함께 들어와야 됩니다. 이런 뜻으로 영어식으로는 minors or young children must be accompanied by an adult 이렇게 표현할 수가 있고요. 자, 그 다음에는 responsibilities라는 표현이 나옵니다.
Those things you have to do.
Yeah.
Those things that and it's whether it's, for your family, like as a parent, you have a lot of different responsibilities. At your job, you have different responsibilities.
responsibilities는 자신이 맡은 의무, 책임이 되겠죠. 그러니까 여기서는 childcare responsibilities는 부모로서 아이를 키울 때 여러 가지 이제 책임을 져야 하는 것들이 있는데 그로 인해서 leaving their jobs 경력이 단절되는 거를 여기서 이렇게 표현을 하고 있습니다. 사실 뭐 경단녀에 딱 들어맞는 한 단어가 있지는 않으니까요. 영어식으로는 이렇게 좀 풀어서 쓸 수가 있겠죠. Women leaving their jobs due to childcare responsibilities.
And even like children can have responsibilities too,
Of
right? Like
course, yeah.
responsibilities to go to their hagwons, go to school, do their homework. So everybody has different responsibilities.
네, 누구나 자신의 맡은 일이 있으니까요. Everyone has responsibilities.
And you shouldn't shirk your responsibilities.
Oh.
That's a phrase you don't see it too often, but this word to shirk something, S-H-I-R-K, means you don't take your responsibility seriously and you don't do what you're meant to do, or what you're paid to do, what you're supposed to do.
So you shouldn't shirk your
You shouldn't shirk your responsibilities, yes.
Right. Be a responsible person. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The employment rate of working mothers reached a record high in the first half of this year, accompanied by a slight decrease in the number of women leaving their jobs due to childcare responsibilities. Let's move on to the second headline.
Middle-class consumers around the world, including in countries with no tradition of eating noodles, are turning to instant noodles in droves, according to a report in The Guardian.
면식 문화에 익숙하지 않은 나라를 포함한 세계 각국의 중산층이 최근 인스턴트 라면을 다량 소비하고 있다는 외신 보도가 나왔습니다. Wow, okay, so it's common sense for countries that like noodles
Sure.
to like ramen,
Right.
but even countries that have no tradition of eating noodles, they still like ramen too.
Right. So some of the this report out of The Guardian, they were referencing stats from the Osaka-based World Instant Noodle Association. So I went on their website, and some of the numbers that The Guardian was reporting was actually different from what's updated on this website.
I see.
So, but also like you can still get the main message where countries with a long history of eating noodles. So China and Hong Kong were number 1. Indonesia was 2. Vietnam was 3. And then you had Japan in 5th. But who was 4th and who was 6th? That's the interesting part. India was 4th, and the U.S. 6th.
India is rice-based and the US is more sort of bread-based.
Yeah, wheat, sure.
Yeah, and yet instant noodles is very popular
Right,
there now.
and which is really interesting because like this was like a number of years ago. I'd say over 10 years ago. I was back in Canada and I was in Toronto and I was in a 편의점 and there was some Korean ramyeon there and I was like, oh, look at this, and I was like, oh, I think I asked the person who worked there, is this really popular? And the worker told me, oh yeah, like a lot of Indian people buy it. And it was like, I think it was one of the Korean brands, right? It was
Right.
Korean ramyeon. So
Because in India, normally they have naan and they
Sure.
have their rice, but wow, instant noodles.
instant noodles are
as well now. Yeah.
right. So I wasn't, because I had anecdotal evidence that Indian people are really into ramyeon, and this was a number of years ago.
That's interesting.
And
Yeah.
Korea is currently ranked 8th on this list on the WINA website. That's where I got this information from. This was updated on May 23rd.
네. 그 오사카에 있는 World Instant Noodles Association에서 이렇게 전 세계 그 instant noodles가 얼마나 인기인지 이걸 조사를 해본 것인데요. 거기에는 미국이라든지 인도처럼 면식 문화에 익숙하지 않은 나라들도 포함이 되어 있었다. 이런 뜻이 되겠고요. 이걸 영어로는 countries with no tradition of eating noodles 이렇게 표현을 해봤습니다.
Another interesting thing is some big Japanese instant noodle companies, Nissin Foods, that's the biggest one. They call that the new instant noodle giant, and one of its rivals. They've recently announced construction of production facilities in the U.S. and Mexico. They're going to be opening up new facilities by 2025 to meet this soaring demand.
Oh wow, Mexico as well.
Mexico as well, right? Well, production-wise, right? So
right.
it's cheaper to produce there than it is in China now.
Got it. Well, a lot of consumers are turning to instant noodles.
Sure. So when we say you turn to something, it has the nuance that you're doing something or buying something or eating something that's maybe less desirable than something else, but you're doing it out of necessity. So either you don't have as much money at the moment, so you're going to go for a cheaper alternative, or maybe there's just a lack of options at the moment, maybe because there's not enough supply of something, for example. So, okay, well, I guess I have to do this. I have to buy this now.
turn to라는 것 자체는요, turn이 들어가 있잖아요. 그래서 고개를 돌려서 이쪽에 관심을 보이는 게 될 수도 있겠지만 사실 여기서는 의지를 한다라는 느낌까지 같이 들어 있습니다. 그래서 지금 레이 선생님이 살짝 예로 든 게 이제는 내가 어쩔 수 없이 이것에 의존한다라고 할 때도 I have to turn to something.
It's not your first choice.
그러니까 좀 그 최우 선책은 아니지만 차선책 정도일 때 이런 표현을 쓸 수도 있겠고 여기서는 지금 이제 많은 사람들이 they are turning to instant noodles. 그러면 이제 이런 라면을 좋아한다, 많이 소비한다라고 볼 수 있겠죠. And what about in droves?
It's when a lot of people are doing something. Many people are doing something.
In droves라는 이 하나의 표현이요. 굉장히 많이들 이렇게 때를 지어서 라는 뜻이 있습니다.
The phrase you usually see is tourists or people, they flock somewhere in droves. So, in the summertime, people who like beaches, they flock to the beaches in droves. Winter's coming.
Yeah.
So those winter sports enthusiasts like skiers and snowboarders, they will soon be flocking to resorts all
in
around the
droves.
world,
Yeah.
right, in droves. Gangwon-do is going to have people going there in droves
Absolutely.
soon to enjoy the skiing.
맞습니다. 많이들 이렇게 같이 때를 지어서 스키장을 간다든지 여름에는 뭐 해변에 간다든지 그러겠죠. 그래서 flock in droves, go somewhere in droves 이렇게 쓸 수 있고요. 이 헤드라인에서는요. Consumers are turning to instant noodles in droves 이렇게 얘기를 하고 있습니다. 때를 지어서 많이 이렇게 한다라는 의미가 되겠죠.
Are you a big instant noodle
No, I'm
fanatic?
not. No, are you?
No.
Well, we're the exception.
Yeah,
then.
we're the exception. Right.
All right. Well, here's the headline one more time. Middle-class consumers around the world, including in countries with no tradition of eating noodles, are turning to instant noodles in droves, according to a report in The Guardian. Let's take a break.
Israel's cabinet has approved a deal with Hamas that will see 50 Israeli women and children released over a 4-day ceasefire in exchange for 150 jailed Palestinians and a lull in fighting.
이스라엘이 자국에 수감된 팔레스타인인 150명을 석방하고 휴전하는 대가로 하마스가 4일간의 교전 중지 기간 동안 어린이와 여성 인질 50명을 석방하는 내용의 협상안을 이스라엘 강요회의가 승인했습니다. All right, so there's going to be a ceasefire from today.
Right, they've said, BBC was reporting that it'll be 10 a.m. local time, so we're 7 hours ahead of them. So it'll be about 5 in the evening, 5 o'clock p.m. today.
Right.
is when this should start.
I see. 네, 현지 시간으로 목요일 오전 10시부터 이제 일단은 휴전에 들어간다라고 합니다. But the hostages won't be freed until Friday. That's what the BBC is also saying as well. And that's a little bit different to what they had anticipated because they had hoped that Thursday would be the start. But, well, at least the ceasefire.
The ceasefire,
yeah,
right.
that begins Thursday.
Temporary ceasefire. So Israel has said that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, he said we're at war. We will continue this war. We will resume fighting Hamas once the truce expires. So he's fully just said this is temporary.
네, 지금 이게 그 잠시 동안 휴전한다라는 것도 역시 근데 아주 명백하게 밝히고 있습니다. 시스파이어가 끝나자마자 또 다시 이렇게 파이팅이 시작이 될 것이다라는 얘기도 나오고 있으니까요.
More than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed during this recent Israeli offensive, and a lot of, many believe that those numbers are underreported. It could be 25, 3,000 more people. A lot of them, they're saying 2/3 of the dead have been identified as women and minors as well. Right. Israel has said thousands of Hamas militants have been killed.
So you said 11,000.
More than 11,000 Palestinians.
Palestinians have been killed. 아, 그렇군요. 팔레스타인인이 지금 11,000명 이상이 사망한 것으로 집계가 되는데 이게 좀 지금 일단은 이 숫자가 공식적으로는 이렇게 나와 있지만 you said that the 11,000 could be
underreported.
Underreported.
It's most likely underreported, meaning it's much higher.
The actual figure
The
could
actual
be higher.
figure. And one report I read said around 2,500 more, because a lot of people are buried under rubble at the moment. There's thousands of people, hundreds to thousands of people missing, displaced. I think they're saying millions are displaced already because of this.
갈 곳을 잃은 사람들은 뭐 말할 것도 없이 너무나 많아졌고요. 지금 underreported라는 것은 보도가 이렇게 한 뭐 10,000명, 11,000명 이렇게 되고 있지만 그 사망자 수가 좀 뭐라 그럴까요? 과소평가된 것처럼 과소평가는 underrated지만 여기서는 이제 적게 보도가 됐을 것이다. 실제 사망자 수는 그거보다 더 많을 것이다라는 전문가들의 분석이 나오고 있습니다. A lot of the people dead, as you said, are children and women. Let's have a look at the main expressions. The first one is in exchange for something.
Well, when you buy something, anything, you go to the store, you get that item, and you exchange it for money. So any kind, like a trade, you can think of it as a trade.
Yeah.
It doesn't even actually have to be physical things sometimes, right? Like I maybe helped you with something in exchange for a compliment or in exchange for a favor later on down the road.
Sure, why not?
Or sometimes you might do something for someone. You might do some work for them, and then they might, in exchange, buy you a meal or something like that, for example.
In exchange for something. And 무언가의 대가로라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. What about a lull?
That is a period of time where things are calm and quiet. And usually there's been some upheaval prior to that. A lot of times you'll hear things, a lull in fighting or a lull in hostilities.
lull이라는 거는요, 이제 소강 상태를 말하고 있는 거죠.
Or there's a big storm, right? It's like it's a very there's lots of rain, lots of storm, and then there's a bit of a lull. It's not so strong for a period of time.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
it just starts up again.
네, 그래서 여기서는 a lull in fighting이라고 했어요. 그러니까 잠시 동안 싸우는 것을 중지한다라는 뜻이 되겠네요. Here's the headline again. Israel's cabinet has approved a deal with Hamas that will see 50 Israeli women and children released over a 4-day ceasefire in exchange for 150 jailed Palestinians and a lull in fighting. Here's our next headline.
U.S. existing home sales plummeted to their lowest level in more than 13 years in October as the highest mortgage rates in 2 decades and a dearth of houses drove buyers from the market.
지난달 미국의 주택 판매가 13년 만에 가장 낮은 수준으로 급락했습니다. 20여 년 만에 최고치를 기록한 금리와 주택 공급 부족으로 구매자가 줄어든 영향입니다. So from this we can assume that the high mortgage rates and the lack of houses made the houses very expensive.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And that's why less people are
We're
buying
buying,
houses.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so the worst in 13 years.
Yeah, well, just with interest rates the way
Wow.
with the way they are, and we talk a lot about interest rates. What's the difference between mortgage rates? Well, technically it's the same thing. Your mortgage rate is the interest you pay on the money you borrowed to purchase your house.
여기서 말하는 그 mortgage rate, 뭐 표현으로 바로 가면서 같이 봐도 될 것 같은데요. 우리가 보통 이제 주택담보대출을 mortgage라고 합니다. 근데 거기에 대한 rate는 주택담보대출의 금리를 말하는 거죠. So it's the interest rate for the mortgage.
Exactly.
And what about a dearth of houses?
As you just mentioned, it's a lack of something or a shortage of something. So I think everybody can think of it. So there's less houses available now. Okay, so when there's less supply, then we know the price is going to go up. So houses are more expensive now, and now mortgage rates are higher. So now you have to pay even more to finance the purchase of that more expensive home.
Yep.
A lot of people are just, I'm out. Like it's too rich for my blood.
Yeah. 너무 비싸. 이런 입장의 사람들이 굉장히 많다라는 얘기인데요. dearth, 발음은 earth랑 라임이 돼요. 그래서 앞에 d 하나 붙는 건데 무언가의 부족이란 뜻입니다. a lack of something이랑 같은 뜻이 되겠고 지금 이제 구입할 수 있는 주택의 숫자는 적고 금리는 높고 그러니까 가격이 뭐 천정부지로 오르는 거죠. 그러다 보니 아무래도 구입할 수 없는 상황이 계속 이어지고 실제로 주택 판매가 14년 만에 가장 낮은 수준으로 뚝 떨어졌다라고 합니다. Okay, well, this could affect the real estate market elsewhere as well, I suppose. People are watching out for that. Let me read the headline again. US existing home sales plummeted to their lowest level in more than 13 years in October, as the highest mortgage rates in 2 decades and a dearth of houses drove buyers from the market. Let's quickly look at the word drove as well before we move on to that. Earlier on, we had in droves, which is a lot of something.
That's a phrase, right?
Yeah.
You had in droves is a phrase.
And here we have a completely different
Word,
term,
yeah.
but it looks the same.
Yeah,
Drove.
It's the past tense of drive, right? So, you drove your car to work today. But when we say it this way, it drove someone to do something, it was the driving force.
Yeah.
It caused you to do something. It was the impetus for a change usually.
네, 여기 헤드라인에 나와 있는 drove는 drive의 과거 형태가 되겠죠. 그래서 이런 상황으로 내몰렸다라는 느낌으로 이해하시면 될 것 같아요. All right, let's move on to the final headline.
Finland has shut down 4 of its 9 border crossings with Russia to stem a flow of asylum seekers, mostly from the Middle East and Africa, as Finnish authorities believe the migrants are purposely being ushered towards the border by Moscow.
핀란드가 러시아와 면한 국경 검문소 9곳 중 4곳을 폐쇄했습니다. 이는 대부분 중동과 아프리카 출신인 난민의 유입을 막기 위한 조치로 핀란드 당국은 러시아가 이들 난민을 의도적으로 밀어내고 있다고 보고 있습니다. All right, what's going on here?
Oh, nothing good if you're from Finland, right?
Yeah.
They believe that this is Moscow's revenge for them joining NATO earlier this year.
그래요. 지금 이제 핀란드하고 러시아의 상황을 지금 간단히 보고 있는데요. Finland says that Russia is pushing or
Moving them there.
moving the
Right.
people
So what they're
towards the
saying
border.
is
Yeah.
that so they're saying that at least 280 asylum seekers, mainly from Syria, Yemen, and Somalia and Iraq, they've arrived in Finland through Russia just since September. And there are more than 100 people are swarming other border crossings as well. And what they've said is these people, they arrive at these entry stations by bicycle or on foot after legally entering Russia. And then Russia pushes them towards there. So these entry points that the Finnish government has closed down or shuttered, they will remain closed until February 18th. So for quite a while, European Union President Ursula von der Leyen, she praised this new Finnish border policy. However, the Kremlin had a much different take on it.
Yeah.
They said Finland was making a big mistake, and they said the Finnish authorities have taken the path of destroying bilateral relations.
러시아는 전혀 다른 take, 입장입니다. 무슨 입장이냐면은요. 핀란드가 완전히 착각하고 있다. 이거는 핀란드와 러시아 간의 양국 간의 관계를 악화시키는 그런 추측성 발언이다라는 게 이제 러시아 입장인데 핀란드는 어떻게 지금 보고 있냐면은요. 러시아에서 이렇게 아프리카라든지 중동 지역에서 온 그런 난민을 일부러 핀란드 쪽으로 이렇게 밀어내고 있다. 왜 계속 이렇게 보내냐? 이런 입장인 거죠. 핀란드에서는 실제로 9월부터 지금까지 280명 이상의 시리아, 예멘, 소말리아, 이라크 등지에서 온 난민들이 이렇게 러시아와 핀란드 사이 국경 지대에서 지금 발견이 되고 있고요. 대부분 걸어서 핀란드로 넘어가려고 하거나 아니면 자전거를 타고 핀란드로 넘어가려고 한답니다. 이 핀란드 발음도 좀 언급을 하고 싶은데요. 우리는 사실 이제 그냥 핀란드 그래가지고 두음 법칙 써가지고 핀란드처럼 발음을 하지만 영어에서는 N 발음 반드시 해주셔야 돼요. 그래서 핀란드 하셔야지 핀란드 하시면 안 됩니다.
Good hockey players there too.
Oh, really? From
yeah.
Finland?
Oh, yeah, lots.
Interesting. Okay, let's have a look at the main vocabulary. The first one is to stem something.
In this case, it means to try and stop something. So a lot of the times you'll see, if you're reading about some medical incident, they'll talk about trying to stem bleeding,
Yes.
stem the bleeding if a patient has an open wound.
네, 무언가를 막다라는 뜻이
Or
있습니다.
you'll see stem the flow of things a lot as well.
Indeed. And to usher someone towards something.
Well, if you've ever, if you've been to a movie theater or a musical, the people who stand there and show you to your seats, those are called ushers.
In Korea, we don't have ushers in movie theaters, though. But maybe
Kind of. Well, they work
theaters.
there. Yeah, they work there. I went to Cirque du Soleil. There's ushers there.
Not a movie theaters, I mean, but other places.
Okay. Depends how you like it.
You disagree? Okay.
Kind of. Because I had that job before, and I would sort of consider it a bit of an usher.
No,
Like,
I mean,
'cause you're-
in Korea we don't.
Okay,
But of course, in Canada, and I think in America and other places.
so when you usher someone towards something, you move them there.
맞아요. 자, 이 어셔라는 직업이 뭐냐면은 안내해주는 사람이에요. 자리로 안내해주는 사람이죠. 그래서 우리 뭐 극장이라든지 공연을 할 때, 우리 공개 방송할 때도 다 이렇게 자리로 안내해주는 사람이 있어요. 근데 북미권에서는 영화관에서도 그런 걸 합니다. 그래서 그 얘기를 지금 좀 전에 해주신 건데. 우리나라에서 영화관에서 자리로 안내해주는 사람은 없잖아요. 근데 나는 했어. 이러고 지금 레인 선생님이 있다. 이 직업이 있습니다. 우리나라에 없을 뿐이죠. 그리고 이 usher towards 어디라고 했으니까 어디로 안내해주다, 인도해주다. 여기서는 사실 밀어내다 라는 뜻으로 헤드라인에서 썼다고 보시면 되겠습니다. So I wonder if the singer Usher used to be an usher. Was he an usher? Or was like I don't know why.
I don't know.
잘 모르겠어요.
I doubt it.
저도 잘 모르겠네요. 왜 가수 어셔 이름이 그런지. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Finland has shut down 4 of its 9 border crossings with Russia to stem a flow of asylum seekers, mostly from the Middle East and Africa, as Finnish authorities believe the migrants are purposely being ushered towards the border by Moscow.